Okay, cool.
It's live.
Now, how do I find it?
I'm fine right now. I'm gonna get this link and then I'm gonna put it in that chat for you, bro.
Okay.
I'm best, bro.
Are you looking for it so you can share it?
Yeah, I'm waiting for it to because I've got the YouTube. I've got the YouTube. It's not giving me the live stream. It's just giving me previous recordings.
Yeah. What name is it under, Dawiyat?
ISBK San Antonio, YouTube.
Okay. Then I'm on it. Shit. I guess that's it.
Yeah, but maybe because they're not live streaming, it's not giving me the option.
That's what it is. I'm just gonna put the what you call it. I'm gonna put that. He's gonna live stream it first. Is what he said.
So have you sent it to those? You sent it already?
I'm sending it to the Israel men.
Yeah, I've just sent it.
Oh, you just did? Cool, perfect. All right.
I'm sorry about that, bro.
No, that's all right, man. All right.
He sent the link. Bros, links in the chat room.
Okay, cool. Let me make sure I got the right one. Okay.
I'm sorry about that, bro.
No, that's all right, man. Ain't nothing to be sorry about. Let me go ahead and get off this channel. I'm double. All right.
Yeah, really.
You just put it on the exercise?
Links in the chat room.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Cool. Damn, I didn't realize you came to see me, but I'm like straight up witness protection. I'm a Yetzirah. You too now. Shit.
That's funny.
You know, you be hearing niggas talking, but you can't see their face.
A lot of power. Still a lot of power coming out.
Okay, listen, y'all. Let's go to Daniel chapter 9. The most challenging area of Daniel chapter 9 are the last four verses. From verses 24 to 27, I believe that's the last verse, 27. But we are, for the sake of having the entire, what do you call it? The entire breakdown, so that we can have it complete. We're gonna start there. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead. Let me get there. Daniel chapter 1, brother. Daniel chapter 9, and you can start off at verse 1. Yeah, I got one question before you get started. How is Sister Tiara doing? Say that again. Bring it up. I can't. Come on. I'm about to say, come over here. Go ahead.
Not so good, bro. I heard no good news, bro.
Has anyone talked to Yohanada?
You talked to him. Yeah.
I talked to him. I think maybe last week. I don't know if it was Monday, but he was telling me that she was 11 days still on the in the coma. Yeah. Now, was she on the ventilator as well?
Yeah, she was on the ventilator. It was supposed to be she was gonna breathe on her own, but what I heard from him was he's not looking at it good. It's not looking at it better. That's the news from 48 hours ago. That's 48 hours ago news, but it hasn't gotten any better. But I haven't heard anything.
I'll talk to War about it later. Okay. I'm gonna get this out. You there? Thank you. Go ahead, brother. Chapter 9 and verse 1.
Okay. Daniel chapter 9, verse 1. In the first year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus.
Your microphone is very low.
My mic is low.
Maybe the phone is far away from you. I don't know.
Hold on. Let me put this one on mute. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but now there's an echo. Do you got two phones on?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh, that's perfect, y'all. Y'all have to forgive me. These people back here already blowing bombs up and shit. It ain't even 10 o'clock yet. Okay, you know how it is, Amayetas out here. I'll have to be disciplined. Okay, go ahead. Daniel chapter 9, excuse me, and verse 1.
Daniel chapter 9 and verse 1. In the first year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, of the seed of the Medes, which was made king over the realm of the Chaldeans.
Now listen here, man. This is what's gonna go down. You have the seed of the Medes, and you got the seed of the Persians. The Persians are the ones who are ruling. The Medes are, let's say, vassal or subordinate to them. So a lot of these names are going to be the same. Like when you go to the Persian seed, you have Cyrus, then you have Darius, but this is of the seed of the Persians. You have Xerxes, or he's known as Ahasuerus. Then you have Artaxerxes. All of that is the Persian, but here you got the same names, but he's specifying that it's the seed of the Medes. And what happened was Cyrus took this person, Darius. This is not his son. This is not his successor. This is one of the kings from another realm, from Media, that's vassal to him, and he put him over Babylon. All right, just so that you know. Go ahead, Art, verse 2.
Verse 2. In the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by books the number of the years, whereof the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah the prophet, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolations of Jerusalem.
So you could go to those verses, just letting you know, when he says by books, he's talking about by the books of Jeremiah. It'll be chapters like chapter 25, chapter 29, with Jeremiah is, or you could do 2 Chronicles chapter 36, where it's made mention that Jeremiah prophesied about how long that Israel would be exiled in Babylon. Go ahead, Art.
Verse 3. And I set my face unto the Lord power, to seek by prayer and supplications with fasting and sackcloth and ashes. And I prayed unto the Lord my power, and made my confession, and said, O Lord, the great and dreadful power, keeping the covenant and mercy to them that love him, and to them that keep his commandments. We have sinned and have committed iniquity, and have done wickedly, and have rebelled, even by departing from thy precepts and from thy judgments.
Now, this is Daniel's prayer, and Daniel is acknowledging, and this is one of the things that the Most High, it stands out with him. Like even when you read 2nd Esdras, I believe it's chapter 8, where the Most High said the thing that was marvelous about Esdras, and Esdras got more visions, more clarity in things than Daniel did. The scriptures tell you that in the book of Esdras, that like, for instance, chapter 11 and 12, where Daniel, yeah, brother.
Oh, you know why?
Because the Most High chose it out.
Okay.
That's, that's all it is to it. But Ezra, for instance, Daniel got the vision of the four beasts, and then the three beasts were made clear, and the fourth beast was made clear enough to Daniel, but they didn't know what beast it was until the Most High gave it to Esdras, and the Most High told Esdras that the fourth beast is the eagle. The eagle is the fourth beast that was seen in the vision of your brother Daniel, but it was not expounded to him. Therefore am I come to give it to you. So but the things that stand out with the Most High is that Daniel or Esdras, when they prayed, they didn't count, their attitude wasn't as though they counted themselves among the righteous. They understood that their nation had departed from the Most High, and so they considered themselves among the sinners as well. Go ahead, Art. Verse
Daniel
6.
Daniel chapter 9 and verse 6. Neither have we hearkened unto thy servants the prophets, which spake in thy name to our kings, our princes, and our fathers, and to all the people of the land. O Lord, righteousness belongeth unto thee, but unto us confusion of faces, as at this day. To the men of Judah, and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and unto all Israel that are near and that are far off, through all the countries whither thou hast driven them, because of their trespass that they have trespassed against thee.
Right. The Most High have us in confusion and perplexity. Okay. In all the nations where we've been scattered. Go ahead.
Verse 8. O Lord, to us belongeth confusion of face, to our kings, to our princes, and to our fathers, because we have sinned against thee.
Go ahead.
Verse 9. To the Lord our power belong mercy and forgiveness, though we have rebelled against him. Neither have we obeyed the voice of the Lord our power, to walk in his laws, which he set before us by his servants the prophets.
Right. Go ahead.
Yea, all Israel have transgressed thy law, even by departing, that they might not obey thy voice.
Listen to what it said. All Israel. And that's every last one of us. Continue.
Therefore, the curse is poured upon us, and the oath that is written in the law of Moses, servant of the Most High, because we have sinned against him. And he hath confirmed his words, which he spake against us, and against our judges that judged us, by bringing upon us a great evil. For under the whole heaven have not been done as have been done upon Jerusalem.
That means no nation on this earth got laid out like the Most High destroyed Israel. And that's the truth. We're the only nation who have no idea. Of course, the Most High brought us, we're being brought back, but we're the only people in the world whose identity, whose collective identity have been completely destroyed. Like Esau, for instance. Esau have made the decision to keep his people in the dark and not let them know who they are biblically. And that's how it's been with all the nations. They exercise through ignorance that level of control and manipulation. But for us, we were the ones who the Most High, like it says in Deuteronomy chapter 32, he caused the memory of us to cease in the world of men. Go ahead, Art.
Verse 13. As it is written in the law of Moses, all this evil is come upon us. Yet made we not our prayer before the Lord our power, that we might turn from our iniquities and understand thy truth.
Go ahead.
Therefore have the Lord watched upon the evil and brought it upon us. For the Lord our power is righteous in all his works which he doeth. For we obeyed not his voice.
So when it said the Lord watched upon the evil, that means the Most High was the one who sent it and made sure that the evil get done against us. And in doing so, he's righteous. His judgments are righteous because we disobeyed. Go ahead.
Verse 15. And now, O Lord our power, that has brought thy people forth out of the land of Egypt with a mighty hand, and has gotten thee renown, as at this day. We have sinned, we have done wickedly. O Lord, according to all thy righteousness, I beseech thee, let thine anger and thy fury be turned away from thy city Jerusalem, thy holy mountain, because for our sins and for the iniquities of our fathers, Jerusalem and thy people are become a reproach to all that are about us.
Go ahead.
Now therefore, O our power, hear the prayer of thy servant and his supplications, and cause thy face to shine upon thy sanctuary that is desolate, for the Lord's sake. O my power, incline thine ear and hear. Open thine eyes and behold our desolations, and the city which is called by thy name. For we do not present our supplications before thee, our righteousnesses, but for thy great mercies. O Lord, hear. O Lord, forgive. O Lord, hearken and do. Defer not for thine own sake, O my power. For thy city and thy people are called by thy name.
Now, what does that mean? When it says thy city and thy people are called by their name, that's just telling us that we are called by the name that the Most High gave us. Our name isn't the Most High's name. Like when you read Isaiah 43, verses 1, 2, and 3, it lets you know that I have called thee by thy name. So whenever it says that we're called by his name, it's talking about we're called by the name that he gave us.
Oh.
Good. All right. Go ahead, Amiyatazan.
Verse 20. And whilst I was speaking and praying and confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel, and presenting my supplication before the Lord my power, for the holy mountain of my power. Yea, whilst I was speaking in prayer, even the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly, touched me about the time of the even oblation.
So now listen, you know this is the angel. He said the man Gabriel, but this he's referring to the angel Gabriel, which shows you they come like men. Go ahead.
Verse 22. And he informed me and talked with me and said, O Daniel, I am now come forth to give thee skill and understanding. At the beginning of thy supplications, the commandment came forth, and I came to show thee that thou art greatly beloved. Therefore, understand the matter and consider the vision.
All righty, here we go. So now we can say we got the whole chapter, right? We want to at least get that out the way. Go ahead, verse 20, 24.
24. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins and to make reconciliation for iniquity and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy and to anoint the most holy.
Right, stop right there. So I want you guys to understand this first. The 70 weeks are not 70 chronological earthly weeks. We're going to show you. This is a phrase that the Most High is using just to help us, or I should say this, it's a prophetical period. It's not saying that 70 weeks equals 500 years or anything. I'm going to show you. This is verse 24, giving Daniel an overview. Now he's going to give Daniel, meaning an overview of the things that the 70 weeks consist of. So within the 70 weeks, it says 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression and to make an end of sin and to make reconciliation for iniquity and to bring in everlasting righteousness. All of that is talking about what? Let me ask you guys this. When it says, and to make to end sins, this is talking about the period of time from what Daniel is getting this message now. It's not talking, verse 25 will get clear. I just want you to know that in verse 24, it's mentioning all things that the coming and the dying, the ministry, the dying, and the resurrection of Christ represent. He's giving us an overview. That's all. All this has to do with what Christ would do. The end of sin. Who is it that would bring an end of sin? Yahweh Shai. He's the one that the Most High will use to live a perfect life in sinful flesh, then make an atonement for us by offering his life up to us. That's how the sin was ended. That's not saying people will stop sinning. It's saying we would enter into a dynamic where if we believe on Christ, our sins have been what? Have been paid for. That's why it said, and to make reconciliation for iniquity. So eventually we're going to go through these. Let's do this first. I'm trying to think of the verse. I just had it. To make reconciliation. I'm a yetazah.
Yeah.
I'll get it. That's okay. I don't want to quote the wrong scripture. Just to show you what was done that made reconciliation. I think it's in Hebrews, but I want to be sure. Like Hebrews chapter 2 or Hebrews chapter 4, but I'll have it for you in a quick second. Yeah, it's Hebrews. Go to the book of Hebrews chapter 2. Hebrews chapter 2. And it's verse 17, but I want you to start reading. I'll tell you what, I want you to read up a little bit above, all right? Hebrews chapter 2 and verse, you know what, this is what we're going to do. You're going to read Hebrews chapter 2, verses 9 through 18. But this is what that verse 24 is making reference to. So it's not talking about a period of time. The 70 weeks is not talking about a period of time that we can equate to so many centuries and so many decades and so many months. It's literally talking about a period of time, and it's going to tell you when the period of time begins from the time of Ezra chapter 1. But we'll get to that later. We go that information, verse 25 will give us. Right now, we want to know what this is saying. So I'm Yetazah, read that. All right. It said, I'm going to read verse 24. You stick in Hebrews. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins and to make reconciliation for iniquity. Stop right there. Go ahead, Ak.
Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 9. But we see Yahushua, who was made a little lower than the angels for the suffering of death, crowned with glory and honor, that he, by the grace of the Most High, should taste death for every man.
Now, this is explaining in detail what we just read, what it's telling us. This is how an end of sin was brought about. This is how a reconciliation was made for transgressions. Christ was made, when it says a little lower than the angels, he said he was made like us. This is going back to Psalms chapter 8, where the Most High talks about when he made Adam. He made him a little lower than the angels. So Christ had to be made just like Adam, because you know Christ is referred to as the second Adam because he was the first Adam. He's the one that brought us, he's the one whose actions brought us into this paradigm. So the Most High used that same spirit in a different body to usher us out of this paradigm. Go ahead, Ak.
Verse 14.
No.
So verse
10.
9. Or verse 10, sorry, but verse 10, I don't know, that's the verse 14. Verse 10, for it became him for whom are all things, and by whom are all things, in bringing many sons unto glory.
Stop right there. When this meaning this was his purpose. For whom are all things? That means all things were created for Christ, and by whom are all things? That means all things were created by him. All right. Now, how do you know that? You guys write these down so that we don't get caught up into too much reading, but that's going to be Colossians chapter 1. Colossians chapter 1, like verses 10 through 16. That lets you know that by Christ, everything was made, and for Christ, everything was made. That's in heaven, that's in earth. It says whether visible or invisible, whether they be principalities, everything is his. So this is why he was put here. Go ahead, I'm going to get to verse 10 from the top again.
Verse 10, for it became him for whom are all things, and by whom are all things, in bringing many sons unto glory, to make the captain of their salvation perfect through suffering.
Stop right there. He's telling us his purpose. Christ's purpose was to bring many sons unto glory. What does that mean? Romans chapter 8, right? Now, why are we going here, y'all? This is what verse 24 is talking about. That's why we're reading this in detail. And we're not going to just fly through it because we want to understand it. So bringing many sons unto glory. That's Romans chapter 8, Amaliyatazah. Read verse 27. I want you to start off at the verse that says, and we know that all things work out to the good for them that love the Most High. Was that verse 27? 28? Start off there.
Okay. Romans chapter 8 and verse 28. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love the Most High,
Go ahead.
to them who are the called according to his purpose.
That means what? These are the ones who the Most High called according to what role or what he wants them to perform, what he have in store for them. Go ahead.
Verse 29. For whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his son.
Stop. For whom he did foreknow, them also did he predestinate to be made what? Conforming to the image of his son. That's the glory that Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 10 is talking about. You stay there, Amayetazah. In verse 10, Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 10, when it says, for it became him for whom are all things, and by whom are all things, to bring many sons unto glory. When it says bring many sons unto glory, his purpose was to let's say perform the deeds that would give us the option if the Most High had chosen us to believe in Yahweh Shai, so that we could be made like him. That's the glory. The term glory means image. The term glory means literally, you got different types of uses of the term glory. So when you read Isaiah chapter 60, Isaiah chapter 61, the glory that talks about the future of how all the nations are going to serve us and how we're going to be recognized, that's talking about fame and global recognition. When Christ said in Matthew chapter 24, when the Son of Man appeareth in the clouds with great power and glory, he's talking about recognition, that people are going to know who he is. But then there's another glory that refers to your image. Like when you read 1 Corinthians chapter 15, it tells you that all stars differ in glory. That means you got stars that look different. That means they have a different visual appearance. So the glory that we are right now is earthly. This is all 1 Corinthians chapter 15. The glory that we are now is sinful, the image, in other words. But the glory that we're going to obtain, the glory that we are in apprehension of, that we're in pursuit of, is that of Christ. Who what? Who had to pass through what we did first? Christ passed through what? The image, the human image. He passed through what the scriptures say in 1 Corinthians 15 as the carnal, the fleshly. That's what happened when Adam and Eve sinned. It says it is sown in what? Weakness, but it is raised in glory. That's the glory that he's talking about. So the glory that he's talking about, the image is talking about Christ was brought here to create a dynamic so that those who the Most High determined can be made like him. All right, go ahead, Amayetazah. You still there? Where you at?
Romans chapter 8 and verse 29.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
For whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren.
So this was the Most High's objective, that Christ, that he was the firstborn, but that he would be the firstborn among many of the Most High's sons. That was his objective, that Christ not be the only one made like that. Let me say this. So while he was on earth, he was made a little lower than the angels. But when you read Hebrews chapter 1, once he resurrected, he's put above all the angels because he made them. But why did he have, if he already made them, why did he have to come down here and do this? So that he could solidify us being able to follow in those footsteps, going from being earthly to heavenly. That's all in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. You can't break it all down at once. But that's what chapter 15, the last half, the last third of 1 Corinthians chapter 15, about verse 39 on down, is dedicated to that. It's dedicated to helping you understand the process, like people would like to call it, like anthropologists will refer to it as a rites of passage experience, where you have to do something first before the community. There's a series of things that you have to accomplish before the community will what? Will recognize you as a man among the tribe. Well, that's how the Most High made it in heaven. And so Christ had to come down and do this so that what? So that he could create a path for us to be justified in being made like him. And he himself is made in the image of the Most High. and we are going to be made like him. So we're going to be made in the image of the Most High. And that was the Most High stated goal from the beginning. Remember, what did he say in Genesis chapter 26? Genesis chapter 1 and verse 26, let us make man in our image. That's the Most High and Christ. That's their stated goal. Let's take them and make them like us. But it wasn't talking about pride. And in that moment, it's talking about we're going to take them and put them through a process that they will end up being like us. And you're going to go down there and get it started. And that's why the Most High sent Christ down, that spirit, as Adam. And that's what started the process of the need to make this transition from becoming earthly to heavenly, from becoming carnal, natural to celestial. This is what this verse is talking about. Go ahead, Amayetazah.
Romans chapter 8.
That was read verse 29 into the end.
Romans chapter 8 and verse 29. For whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. Moreover, yeah.
That's it. Then that's all I wanted. Because what were we doing? We were breaking down. We wanted to clarify what Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 10 was saying when it said, for it became him for whom are all things, and by whom are all things, to bring many sons unto glory. What is the glory that Christ was used to bring many sons unto? The glory is his image. That was said to be made conforming to the image of him, of Christ. He is the firstborn of many sons who were designated to be made like the Most High. Okay, now remember, don't get blown out of space when I say because of the Most High or made in the image of the Most High. That's the stated goal in Genesis chapter 1 and verse what? Verse 26. And the reason we're not like that now is because why? Because Adam failed, and that's what the fall of man is about. They was made in one image and they fell through sin. Remember, Wisdom of Solomon chapter 2, verse 23 and 24. What does it say? It says, for the Most High made man to be immortal. So when he told Adam, if you do this thing, you will die, Adam was made to be immortal. He wouldn't have died. But he had to do that. He had to sin because there was a process that the Most High wanted to take us through using Adam and using Christ so that we would what? We would have gone through the proper channels that the Most High required that we be made ultimately in his image. Okay, let's go back on Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 10 once more. Now you guys know what that means. Go ahead, I'll read for Hebrews 2 and 10.
Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 10. For it became him for whom are all things, and by whom are all things, in bringing many sons unto glory, to make the captain of their salvation perfect through sufferings.
That means in order for Christ to be able to be used to usher us into being an image like him, he had to come down and suffer. He had to come. Why? Because he's the one, that spirit, as Adam is the one that ushered us into this. So he had to what? Pay. He had to come and clean up the mess he made as Adam so that we could what? Follow him in the correct path to clean up the mess that we've made. Remember, we're sinners. Now, don't get me wrong. 2 Ezra chapter 7 tells us what? That Adam, oh Adam, what hast thou done? Although it was thou that sinned, thou art not fallen alone, but all of us that be born of thee. So that means we got that. We have Adam's sinful nature. That's why we think sinful thoughts. That's why we think evil, hateful thoughts. We don't act upon every thought. We don't follow those thoughts like children do impulses, but we have them. And some of us follow out and commit those passionate crimes and others don't. But we all are sinful, and we all sin in each man's way of sinning. Now, everybody ain't out there, ain't no damn serial killer, but we all are sinful. Go ahead, Art. Verse 11.
Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 11. For both he that
Dawiyah, did you have a question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead, Art.
Hebrews chapter 2, verse 11. For both he that sanctifieth and they who are sanctified are all of one.
Stop right there. For both he that sanctifieth and they who are sanctified are all one. So who is the one that sanctifieth? I'm going to show. Well, let's do what? Who are the ones that are sanctified first? That's John chapter 17 and verse 17. Go there. It's talking about us. But then we're going to read, how are we sanctified? These people, these neighbors around here blowing. I hope y'all can hear this shit already. Bombs and shit, man. I can't wait till the real ones come. Go ahead. St. John chapter 17, verse 17. This is Christ concerning the apostles. I want you to read. I'll tell you what to read all the way down to. So don't go ahead and start reading. I'll tell you when to stop.
John chapter 17 and verse 17. Sanctify them through thy truth. Thy word is truth.
So the ones who are sanctified are the ones who will believe in the word. This is Christ initially praying for the apostles. This is Christ's last prayer. He's in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he's asking the Most High, now that it's time for him to be received, to take care of those that he left behind. But not those 12 men only. Read on down, Art.
Verse 18. As thou hast sent me into the world, even so have I also sent them into the world.
Talking about the apostles. Now he's already asked the Lord to sanctify. Go ahead.
And for their sakes I sanctify myself, that they also might be sanctified through the faith. So through the truth.
So there you go. When it says, for he that sanctified, for they that are sanctified, and he that sanctified are of one. They all come from the same source. And who is that? The Most High. That's why we're all sons of the Most High. Go ahead.
Verse 20.
Now remember, up until this point, he's still praying for the apostles. Go ahead.
20. Neither pray I for these alone, but for them also which shall believe on me through their words.
Now the prayer is extended to us. So when he says, read the final verse will be verse 21. Read verse 20 and 21.
John chapter 17, verse 20. Neither pray I for these alone, but for them also which shall believe on me through their words, that they all may be one, as thou, Father, art in me, and I in thee, that they also may be one in us, that the world may believe that thou hast sent me.
Now stop. Now go back and read Hebrews chapter 2 and verse, where were we at? Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 11. So now you can see what it's talking about in verse 11. Go ahead, Amiyatazah.
Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 11. For both he that sanctifieth and they who are sanctified are all of one.
So now you notice he didn't say they are all one. He said they are all of one. Who are we all of? We're of the Most High. But it was Christ who came down and did what was required to sanctify himself and thereby sanctifying us. And he said in verse 21 that they may all be one, as thou, Father, art in me and I in thee, that they also may be one in us. That's what it's talking about. So this is the glory. Now, we don't, hold on, I want to make it clear too before I move forward. This is what verse 24 is talking about. It's talking about the process that Christ would complete. But before Christ could complete that, there was a chain of events that have to happen. And the chain of events began with what is written in Ezra chapter 1, the decree that Cyrus, the Most High, put in Cyrus's heart to send Israel out of Babylon, those that were willing to return and go back and build their civilization. It all began with that. That's what verse 24. So we're still breaking down Daniel 9:24. All right. Everything that we read in verse 24, where it said 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression. I mean, from the phrase to finish the transgression, it's all talking about everything that Christ's actions would complete, would fulfill. All right. And to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness. Now, Christ already did and made the what? The reconciliation for iniquity. But have everlasting righteousness been brought in yet? No, that's proof that it's a series of events that have to take place. The everlasting righteousness ain't gonna happen until Christ come back. But his first time, what did he do? He fulfilled that which was needed so that we could be reconciled. When it says reconciliation, that's literally talking about so that the Most High, Christ performed that which was needed for us to be given the opportunity to return to the Most High as sons. And those who the Most High want, he didn't already predestinated them. That's where Romans chapter 8 come in. Ain't nobody getting in that wasn't called. Talking about Israelites. You got 2/3 Israelites are going to die. And of the 1/3, many of them are going to be purged in the wilderness. That's all scriptures. So that means what? This is an opportunity, but we're not clear on who those ones are yet. And that's why Paul came back in other verses and said what? You got to strive to make your election sure. Because Christ said before Paul, many are called, but few are chosen. Go ahead, Yetazar, call your verse out.
Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 11. For both he that sanctified and they who are sanctified are all of one. For which cause he is not ashamed to call them brethren.
You guys got to remember that Yahweh Shai is your savior, but he's your brother first. That might sound like sacrilegious, but it's not. He couldn't be your savior unless he was your brother first. The Most High wasn't going to take no savior from outside the nation. The prerequisite for the savior that he had, what did the Most High tell Moses to tell the people in Deuteronomy chapter 18? The Lord will send from among thy brethren one like unto me. Him ye will hear. So he's reminding us, he's the brother first who was selected to save us. He was the one that the Most High said, you will go down and perform that which is needed so that my sons and daughters can return to me as sons and daughters, and I will recognize them as such. But without Christ being our brother that was selected by the Most High, he's the oldest. But they got a word in Spanish, primogénito. That means first. And he's the firstborn, the scripture saying Colossians, of every living creature. That means he's the first thing created. And the reason why the Lord called him his only begotten, because to beget means to produce from yourself, is because the Most High pulled Christ, just like a man produces a son from himself, from his loins, Christ comes from the essence of what is the Most High. That's why he's referred to as his only begotten. Go ahead, Yetazar. Call your verse out. Verse 12.
Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 12. Saying, I will declare thy name unto my brethren.
Now, this is Paul citing various Old Testament verses where it's prophesied that Christ will recognize us as his people, as his brothers. Go ahead.
Verse 12 from the top. Saying, I will declare thy name unto my brethren. In the midst of the church will I sing praise unto thee.
Go ahead.
And again, I will put my trust in him. And again, behold, I and the children which the Most High have given me.
Continue.
For as much then as the children are partakers of flesh and blood.
Stop right there. Now it's talking about Christ. For as much as the children are partakers of flesh and blood, that means we, the children of the Most High, we came into this earth. We are flesh and blood. When it says partakers of flesh and blood, it's not talking about the fact that you came, that you're flesh and blood. It's talking about how all things flesh and blood came into the earth. All things flesh and blood come into the earth by what? By the means of by means of a man and woman getting together sexually, and the man putting his seed in the woman, and the woman housing and feeding that seed until the time that the child is grown to where the Most High caused that body to eject it. That's all the birth is the Most High made it hormonally, and he done hormonally and chemically programmed the woman's body to evict the baby at the right time. That's why there's nothing she could do against them contractions and those birth pains, because that's what it is. It's the body ejecting it now. Your time is up. But it says, just like all the children are partakers of that process. Go ahead, Amayetazam.
Verse 14. For as much then as the children are partakers of flesh and blood, he also himself likewise took part of the same.
So that Christ came in the same way. Go ahead. That means he is the product. Him being flesh and blood means that he is the product of a man who put his seed into a woman, and that woman housed and fed that seed until it grew into a child, until the time that the Most High determined that that woman's body would evict that baby. Go ahead. That eviction is called birth. Continue.
That through death he might destroy him that had the power of death, that is the devil.
That means being made susceptible to dying. In doing so, he would break the control that death had over us. Now, what does that mean? That means that what? How did Christ defeat death? How did he break the control? I'm going to tell you how he broke the control. Because the Most High from the beginning told Adam that if you do this thing, we know that's chapter 3 of Genesis, and it's referred to as eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But all that was talking about was idolatry, following foreign philosophies from the beginning. And he was influenced by his wife, who was influenced by a foreign source, a foreign group of humans in the garden. That's what brought death upon us. And not only did that bring death, that's what gave death or sin control over us. Because now we had a corrupt mind, and the scriptures tell you in 2 Ezra chapter 3, that even though the Most High would come back and give us the law through Moses, he still didn't take the wicked heart from us that was sown in the time of Adam. And it says, so that our infirmity of evil, our infirmity of wickedness became permanent. That's what it's telling us. All right. So that's why Christ had to what? Take on this form so that he could. How is it that death had control over us? Death had control over us because it was the ruler over the nature that empowered death. Sin. That's a whole nother lesson within itself. But that's the control that death had over us, huh? Is that we're born sinful, so it got us. And that thanks to Adam. So Christ had to come made like us, sinful flesh. And what? And break that control by living a perfect life, all the way down to the singular thought. Remember, we sin by thought, word, and deed. It comes into our mind first. Christ tell you, man, it will not go into a man that defile him. It says it was coming out of the man. And it says, for of the heart, meaning the mind, come murders and adulteries and thefts. So Christ had to come and be subject, first of all, in a sinful body, in the midst of a sinful people, who even if you're righteous, they'll make you sin. Not make you do what they're doing, but make you say, you mother effer, they'll make you sin. That's what happened with Moses and Aaron. Moses got fed up and said, do we got to keep on giving you what, at the waters where he was supposed to glorify the Most High? The people was constantly riding Moses. And for that reason, Moses didn't get to go into the land of Canaan. That's what I mean when I said the people will make you be righteous and you didn't had it up to here. So imagine now Christ is made like us. He came in by way of a man and a woman. He's made in sinful flesh, but he never sinned, not even down, like I said before, to a singular thought. That means not only did he not say sinful words, not only did he not commit any sinful deed, he never even harbored a sinful thought. He never even let a sinful thought in. You know, we get sinful thoughts, but nobody knows, because number one, they can't be their mind, and number two, we don't act upon the sinful thought. We check it. Right? Somebody says something, you want to hit their ass upside the head with a hammer, you don't do it, but they never know it. But we have those thoughts all the time. See the woman with the big butt? Boom, adultery. That's all it is to it, huh? But Christ never even it's not that he didn't entertain a simple thought. To not entertain a simple thought is still to say he had a simple thought. Christ never allowed a sinful thought to enter. And that's what made him perfect, God. He didn't just not sin in deed. He didn't just not sin in words. He never even allowed a sinful thought. And the Most High knows that. That's why the Most High recognizes his works have been perfect. But that then dying in righteousness and being resurrected is what broke the control that death have over us. Death have control over us by way of us being sinful. Remember, it's sin that bring about death. That's what happened with Adam. He sinned, he had to die. So now we're caught in the vicious cycle of what? Of being made sinful. So death is inevitable. Why? Because we're sinful. It's in our damn genes, DNA, cellular. But what did Christ do? Christ came, made like us, defeated that, and said, now if you believe on me, I'll come and dwell in you, and you could do it too. That's how it happens. It's him that be keeping us from breaking a nigga neck, stealing, committing adultery, falling to our lustful passions. It's him. And because we can't do it like him, we don't have to. All we have to do is believe on him and do it through the power that he give us to do it, because we grow gradually. That's what he did. And that's how he broke the power that death had over us. Because death's only power is over sin, but we're sinful in nature. So that means we were deaths in his little bag, man. Yetazar, call that verse out, verse 14 once more.
Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 14. For as much then as the children are partakers of flesh and blood, he also himself likewise took part of the same, that through death he might destroy him that had the power of death, that is the devil.
That means the spiritual demon Satan. Go ahead.
And deliver them who through fear of death were all their lifetime subject to bondage.
So that's how we got delivered out. We got delivered by Christ coming, being made like us, and living a perfect life all the way down to the singular thought. Go ahead.
Verse 16. For verily he took not on him the nature of angels, but he took on him the seed of Abraham.
So when it says he took not on him, that's talking about he didn't what? Come in the form of. He didn't assume the form of angels. He didn't come in an angelic nature. He came in the seed of Abraham. And at this time, the seed of Abraham was sinful to the point that the Most High rejected it. But that's the form that he took on. Go ahead.
Verse 17. Wherefore in all things it behooved him to be made like unto his brethren.
Now, when it said behoove, that means it was to his benefit that he be made like unto his brethren. Now, I'm going to show you something. All right, you stop right there. Wherefore in all things it behooved him to be made like unto his brethren. What brethren, Dawiyad?
Like unto his brother.
Yeah, what brethren?
Right.
Say that again. What
Israel.
what brethren, Elisha? Say that again. You there, Dawiyad? Okay.
That's my spirit said. Sure, man. I don't know about this again. No, I said Judah.
Okay, I'm gonna wait till he gets settled down.
What you mean, like the many brothers, like Obadiah? That's it.
Let me say this, see, everybody, we all go past, we go right directly to his brothers, us, right? But Christ had biological brothers himself. He was made like them first.
Yeah.
They don't get it. This is hiding right there in the open. Now, let's prove that. What is that? I mean, it's John chapter 12. I'm not John. Go to Matthew chapter 12. And at the end, now I could be wrong. Let me see. Hold up. Where am I at? No, then I mean, yet I want you to find me the one. Let me see if it's chapter 13. Hold up. Yes. Go to Matthew chapter 13, and I want you to start off at verse 53, and we're going to read to verse 58. But the focus, this is what we're going to do. We're going to read from verses 53 to verse 56. And this is what brothers he was made like first. Matthew chapter 13, start off at verse 53.
Matthew chapter 13, verse 53. And it came to pass that when Yahushua had finished these parables, he departed thence. And when he was come into his own country, he taught them in their synagogue, insomuch that they were astonished, and said, whence have this man this wisdom and these mighty works?
Yeah, now when he say his own country, he's talking about his region, where he was raised in Galilee of Nazareth, all right? Or Nazareth, of Galilee. The greater region was Galilee, and the city in it was Nazareth. So he came to the people, he came among the people that he grew up among, that knew him as a child. Go ahead. Yatazah, verse 54. I'm sorry, verse 55.
Matthew chapter 13, verse 55. Is not this the carpenter's son?
Hold on. See, they all knew him for who he was. They didn't say he was the son of God. They said this is Joseph's son, because he was Joseph's son in the flesh, huh? That's what it means where we just came from in Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 16, where it says, it behooved him that he be made like unto his brethren. What makes him our brothers, secondarily, is that he was born into the nation primarily and had his own brothers. He was made like them first. Go ahead, Art.
Matthew chapter 13, verse 55. Is not this the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary? And his brethren.
Let Elisha do something. Because this was his question, so I want to make sure. Hey, listen, you brothers, if you know you come into class, y'all have to start bringing pencils and papers. I mean, the brother there might be new, might be a visitor, but y'all come prepared, okay? Hey, Dawiyad. And so this is what happens is most people like to read Daniel chapter 9 and verse 24 and then just skim over and try to break it down on their own. But remember, we're still in breaking down just verse 24. So this is the perfect example that we have to get accustomed to showing people, right? Demonstrating how the Bible breaks itself down. Elisha there?
Right here,
okay, cool. I don't believe in like if the person that asks the question, if he's in class, then he got to be given the opportunity to be locked in. We're not gonna move on without the brother that asked the question. Okay, I'm gonna Yetazah. Read verse 55 again. Matthew chapter 13, verse 55.
Matthew chapter 13, verse 55. Is not this the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary?
So they knew earthly who his father and his mother was. Go ahead.
And his brethren, James and Joseph and Simon and Judas.
That's who he was made like. Now, how did Mary and Joseph make, what's the oldest one? The second, because Christ was the firstborn of 5 sons. How did Mary and Joseph make James? I can tell you how they made it. They made it through sex. How did Joseph and Mary make Joseph? They made him through sex as well. Simon and Judas, how were they made? Were they adopted? Or did the Holy Spirit come and make a second and third hit? No, they were made like what? Through sex. So it's telling you that when you read Hebrews, hold on, we're not done yet. Chapter 2, verse 16, for verily he took not on him the nature of angels, but he took on him the seed of Abraham. Wherefore in all things it behooved him to be made like unto his brethren. Those are the brethren that he was made like. We are Christ's brethren in the extended sense, all the Israelites. But if he wasn't made like them, how could he be made like us? We were made like that. We were made by a man and a woman, were we not? But his own brothers were first. That's what makes him our brother, is that we all got the same lineage. We can all be traced back, maybe not to the same tribe, but definitely back to the same father. From Jacob on back to Isaac, on back to Abraham, on back to Terah, and on back to Noah, on back to Adam. And that link that we share through Christ is through the seed of Abraham, not no spirit. I'm going to read that final verse. Read verse 55 and 56 now.
Okay. Romans chapter 13, verse 55. Is not this the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary, and his brother James and Joseph, and Simon and Judas? And his sisters, are they not all with us?
You know, that shows me what about his sisters. You notice how they didn't name the sisters, but that shows me that he had at least 3 sisters. Because had it been 1, it would have said, and his sister, is she not with us? If it was 2, it would have said, and his sisters, are they both not with us? But it was more. That's why it says, and his sisters, are they not all with us? So you're talking about 4 boys, minimum of 3. Christ is the oldest. That means Christ is the oldest sibling among a minimum of 8. You got 4 sons. We just read their names. Yahushua is the first. Then you got at least 3. Like I said, had it been 1, it wouldn't have said sisters. But it didn't say both his sisters, it said all of his sisters. It could have been 8 girls. You don't know. That's why I said at least 3. But here's the point that Hebrews is dropping on us, y'all, that people don't seem to see. That Christ was made like them first. Meaning those are the brothers and sisters. Now, don't get me wrong. Earlier in chapter 12, the end of chapter 12, what does Christ tell us all? Christ said, who is my brother? Who is my mother? Who are my sisters? He said, those that hear the word of the Lord and do it. But this ain't talking about mission. Hebrews is talking about genealogy. That's why he said he took on him the seed of Abraham. And it behooved him to be made like unto his brethren. These are the ones that he was made like, and he was made by Joseph and Mary. Go ahead, Amayetazar, verse 16. We're going back to Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 16 again. Thank you. You guys know that we only from here on out. I talked to a war, and we're gonna only be doing 2 hours with y'all because of y'all's work schedule and everything. We ain't gonna be burning y'all out like as in former days. All right. Y'all be nodding out in front of us and shit. We be getting sleepy looking at you. So we're gonna go on and keep it legit. Go ahead, Amayetazar. Hebrews chapter 2, verses 16 and 17.
Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 16. For verily he took not on him the nature of angels, but he took on him the seed of Abraham.
Go ahead.
Wherefore, in all things it behooved him to be made like unto his brethren, that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to the Most High, to make reconciliation for the sins of the people.
Now, why did we come here? because that's one of the things that Daniel 9 and 24 mentioned. So this is the period, this is the goal. In other words, Daniel chapter 9, verse 24. Verse 24 is just giving us a brief synopsis of a chain of events that's going to take place within a spiritual amount of time that the Most High referred to as 70 weeks, all right? But it's not no 70 earthly weeks. The term 7 is talking about completion. That means something has to be done. The will of the Most High must be completed, and this is what's going to happen within that period. So let's go back to Daniel. I'm sorry, I'm yet to read verse 17 and 18. Hebrews chapter 2, verse 17 and 18.
Hebrews chapter 2, verse 17. Wherefore, in all things it behooved him to be made like unto his brethren, that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to the Most High, to make reconciliation for the sins of the people.
Go ahead.
For in that he himself have suffered, being tempted, he is able to succor them that are tempted.
Right. Succor, like Socorro Nuevo Mexico, New Mexico, that means to help or to assist, to aid. So how does Christ assist or aid or help those of us who are tempted like he was? If we believe and operate in his principles, then he dwells in us. He is the one. How does he help us? He helps us through empowering us by dwelling in us. He is the source from which that strength to defeat and to reject temptation. He's the source that generates that. And if you got Christ and believe in Yahweh Shai and you can't, that's because you don't believe in Yahweh Shai and you ain't got Christ. That's what it comes down to. Of course, we got to grow into it, but you can't be in this thing 10, 5, 15 years and ain't grown. You ain't believing in Christ. But the Most High tell you he's merciful and he's long-suffering and he's pitiful. So he knows the greatest thing that we need, guess what it is the time to develop, the time to grow in the spirit, the time to begin to recognize how spiritual battles are fought and played out, how spiritual battles are won and lost. We need time for that. You say something about me, Exazar?
No.
Okay. So let's go back now to Daniel chapter 9, verse 24.
Daniel chapter 9, and verse 24. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city, to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity.
Now stop right there. So as of 2000 and damn near 22, this is where we are. Everything from that point in verse 24 up into this section has been completed by Christ. Continue, Amayetazar.
Verse 24 from the top. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city, to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy.
So this one is what we're waiting for. Everything after iniquity and to bring in everlasting righteousness, that's what Christ is going to do. And how is he going to do it? Brother, he's going to do it by coming in. First, he and his army are going to destroy the armies of the world. Then there are 3 demographics of angels that the scriptures speak of at the coming of Christ. When Christ comes, there's one contingency of armies of celestial beings that's coming to take on the combined forces of all mankind on earth. Talking about the governments and their militaries. Then while that's happening, Christ tells you in Matthew chapter 24 that he's going to send to his angels and they're going to gather his elect from the 4 winds of heaven. But while that's going on, in Matthew chapter 13, he says he's going to send to another group of angels, and they're going to gather out all things that do offend and commit iniquity. People think that the Israelites are going to be the only ones floating. No, we're going to be the only ones floating getting saved. But Matthew chapter 13 lets you know that just like in Matthew 24, it says, let's do this real quick. Let's compare both of those. Because this is how righteousness is going to be established. So first, let's go to Matthew chapter 13, since chronologically it appears first. Let me hold my spot right here. Matthew chapter 13, and I'll tell you the verse I'm yet to say. I'm getting there. I want you to start off at verse 36, and we're going to read, this is called to verse 42. Or no, we're going to read to verse 43, because he said the righteousness, right? It's going to show you. This is when righteousness is going to come. Matthew chapter 13, verse 30, what did I say?
36.
Okay, go ahead.
Matthew chapter 13, verse 36. Then Yahushua sent the multitude away and went into the house, and his disciples came unto him, saying, Declare unto us the parable of the tares of the field. He answered and said unto them, He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man.
Talking about Christ himself, go ahead.
The field is the world.
That's talking about what? The whole globe. We call it earth. Continue.
The good seed are the children of the kingdom.
The Israelites.
But the tares are the children of the wicked one.
That's talking about the Edomites. Go ahead.
The enemy that sowed them is the devil.
Continue. Esau.
The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels.
So what he's doing is he's giving them the understanding to a parable that he told earlier in this very same chapter. Go ahead.
Verse 40. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world.
Go ahead.
The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity.
Listen to that, y'all. There are going to be angels doing what? This is called out because it says the same thing concerning the righteous, but it ain't going to be the same angels. It says, the Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they, the angels, shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend and them which do iniquity. Go ahead, verse 42.
Verse 42. And shall cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth.
Go ahead, verse 43. That means they're going to be dropped into a place on this planet that's burning. Now, the scriptures tell you this, that there's only one place that's going to be burning and that the smoke is going to rise forever, and that's Babylon. So while the Most High is pulling us up, the people that's meant to die is going to stay there, and others from all over the world are going to be teleported by angels and dropped in it.
Huh.
Go ahead, Amayatazar, verse 43.
Verse 43. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom.
Then, hold on. Then shall the righteous shine forth. So that's what, now remember, why did we come here? Because in Daniel chapter 9 and verse 24, the second half of that verse 24, it says, and to bring everlasting righteousness. The righteousness ain't coming out until Christ get rid of the wickedness. That's in second Esdras, all throughout second Esdras as well. Now, we saw that there are angels, according to Matthew chapter 13, whose purpose, whose responsibility is to gather the wicked. Now let's go and see what the other contingency of angels is set to do. Go to chapter 24, Amayatazar, and I want you to start off, I guess, at verse 30. Matthew 24, it might be verse 29, but let's see. Yeah, verse 30.
Matthew 24, verse 30. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory.
That's talking about that angelic military that's coming to invade, as Habakkuk said, the world with his troops. Go ahead, verse 31. And what shall he do?
Verse
Hold
31.
up. Y'all, hold up. I want brothers paying attention, because we're breaking this down, and this is the one that have eluded people for the longest. Verse 31. Hold up. Yes, my water.
I was just trying to ask what chapter you in.
Okay, cool. We were in Matthew chapter. You got chapter 13, what we just read, right?
Yeah.
This is Matthew chapter 24, verses 30 and 31.
What?
Okay, go ahead. I'm gonna get to read it from 30 again.
Matthew chapter 24, verse 30. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory.
Go ahead.
And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet. And they shall gather together his elect from the four winds. From
Now
one end of
stop.
heaven.
So is this not another group of angels? The first group we just read is going to be what? And it's using the same phrase. They're going to be gathering out of his kingdom all things that do offend and commit iniquity. But here it says he's going to be gathering from the four winds of heaven, his elect. Go ahead, Ark, read it, verse 31 from the top.
Verse 31. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet. And they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other.
So that's why I say, when you read, go back to Daniel 24, please. When you read Daniel 24, and it tells you, and to make reconciliation for iniquity. From up until that point in the verse, Christ has accomplished already. But from that point forward, that haven't been accomplished yet, because the wickedness is still in the earth. And now it's finally starting to openly manifest itself instead of operating covertly. You got them doing the whole, the gay thing, what you call it, the homosexual agenda. All the things that's going on right now is wickedness coming out openly now, manifesting itself. Go ahead, Yakazah. Now, okay, brothers, we are in verse 25 now. Daniel chapter. So now Daniel chapter 9 and verse 24 was giving us a synopsis, but now it's going to get into the details of what the breakdown of these 70 weeks are. Go ahead.
Daniel chapter 10 and verse 24. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people.
No, I want you to at 25 now.
Verse 25. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the prince shall be 7 weeks, and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublous times.
All right. Now that seemed like a little bit, but that's a whole lot of reading. I'm gonna show you something. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore, to rebuild Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the Prince, shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. Now we know what 7 is, but what is 62? 3, Eliashai? A score is 20. So 60 is 60, and 2 plus 7 is 69 weeks. So the Most High is telling us that from the time of the going forth of the commandment to build the law up until the time of the rebuilding, the coming of Christ, that is considered 69 weeks. It ain't no 69 weeks. 69 weeks done been passed since Daniel got this. So it's symbolic. It means within that period of time, there's things that got to happen. So now, where will we read? I'm gonna give y'all some homework, okay? There's things that we can read now, and we're going to. So know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem, go to Ezra. Actually, what you're gonna do is you're gonna go to the first place that you hear of it. You're gonna go to Second Chronicles chapter 36. Ezra is the following book, but I want to get it where it first starts off. Where am I at? Second Chronicles chapter 36. I'm a Yetazar, and you're going to read. I'm gonna show you which verses. It's just a couple of verses. You're going to read verse 22 and 23, the last two verses of Second Chronicles chapter 36. Then we're going to go straight into chapter 1 of Ezra.
Second Chronicles, chapter 36.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quick question. Second Chronicles, for what specifically? Like what part of the verse?
Second Chronicles chapter 36. And the last two verses in that chapter is where we begin. But what's your question? You got your what you call it is broken. The sound is not sensitive. Go ahead. Hold up, you got because now it's still not. I don't know what's going on. Is somebody? Let me see if anybody's. No. I need for you to get at a distance, but not too far, because you right there. Say what you're gonna say again.
I was saying for Daniel's 9:25.
Why does his voice keep? I'm a yes. Could you mute your mic real quick?
Are we going to from Daniel 9:25? What part of Daniel 9:25 are we breaking down? Why are we going to Second Chronicles? That's this question.
Okay, thank you. Because yeah, I think the mic is the directional thing. Your voice, I can hear his, but your voice was going out. The reason, thank you. The reason we're going there, Daniel chapter 9 and verse 25, where it says, "Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to rebuild Jerusalem," that's what we're going to read. We're going to read in Second Chronicles chapter 36 and verse 22. This is when it is first introduced, right? 22 and 23, the last two verses. This is when it was first introduced that what? That Israel was being allowed to go back and rebuild Jerusalem after having been exiled for so many decades in what? In Babylon. That's what he's talking about. And that's what we're going to read. Yetazar, you there, bro?
I think he has wind coming from his mic, Doc.
Yeah, you and me both heard it. I was trying to figure out where it's coming from. Yetazar, you there? Okay, fine. Dawiyad, I need for you to read. You got it, but you and my wall, I got to trade places out.
All right, Second Chronicles chapter 36, verse 22.
Okay, go ahead.
Got you, bro.
Go ahead and read out. Sit down and read.
Now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of the Lord spoken by the mouth of Jeremiah might be accomplished, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom, and put it also in writing, saying, "Thus saith Cyrus, king of Persia, all the kingdoms of the earth hath the Lord power of heaven given me, and he hath charged me to build him a house in Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Who is there among you of all his people the Lord, his power be with him, and let him go up.
Now, let me say this. This ain't no random thing. Now, what happens is we're going to get details on it. We're going to read all of Ezra. Now the following book is Ezra. But before we read Ezra, we're going to read, where the Most High prophesied that he was already going to do this through Cyrus. So the first place we're going to go is Isaiah 44. In Isaiah chapter 44, y'all write this down. You're going to read. Now, this is from the prophetical, right? What happens is Daniel, the Most High. So let me say this before I move forward. This is the first or the beginning phase of the 60 or the 70 weeks, Elisha. It began with the decree, the commandment to go forth and build Jerusalem. So now we just read that, but I want to come from the prophetical portion of that, Isaiah chapter 44, verses 24 through 28, Dawiyah. Go ahead and read that.
Thus saith the Lord, thy Redeemer. Isaiah 44, verse 24. Thus saith the Lord, thy Redeemer, and he that formed thee from the womb. I am the Lord that maketh all things. I am the Lord that maketh all things, that stretcheth forth the heavens alone, that spread abroad the earth by myself, that frustrated the tokens of the liars, and maketh diviners mad, that turneth wise men backward, and maketh their knowledge foolish, that confirmeth the word of his servant, and performeth the counsel of his messengers, that said to Jerusalem, thou shalt be inhabited. Thou shalt be inhabited. And to the cities of Judah, you shall be built, and I will raise up the decayed places thereof.
So this is him announcing it by Isaiah. Now listen, he's going to tell you who he planned on using to rebuild Jerusalem. Go ahead.
I'm back.
Okay, cool. I'm going to get this up. We're in Isaiah chapter 44, and you're getting ready to read verse 26. Start at verse 26. I'm going to get this up.
Okay. Isaiah chapter 44 and verse 26. That confirmeth the word of his servant, and performeth the counsel of his messengers, that saith to Jerusalem, thou shalt be inhabited, and to the cities of Judah, ye shall be built, and I will raise up the decayed places thereof.
Go ahead.
Verse 27, that saith to the deep, be dry, and I will dry up thy rivers. That saith of Cyrus, he is my shepherd, and shall perform all my pleasure. Even say to Jerusalem, thou shalt be built, and to the temple, thy foundation shall be laid.
So you see the Most High prophesying. All right. Now you're going to continue through Isaiah 45 to chapters 45, verses 1 through 13. This prophecy continues that Cyrus is being used, and the Most High referred to Cyrus as his servant. Go ahead, chapter 45 of Isaiah, starting at verse 1.
Isaiah chapter 45 and verse 1. Thus saith the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden, to subdue nations before him.
Meaning the Most High raised up Cyrus the Persian to go out and conquer Babylon, to go out and take Israel, to go out and get Egypt, to go out and go all of the old Persian world out. And then the Most High said that the third king of the Persians would go and begin to stir up all type of stuff with the Greeks. That was Xerxes or Ahasuerus in the book of Esther. Go ahead.
And I will loose the loins of kings to open before him the two-leaved gates, and the gates shall not be shut. I will go before thee and make the crooked places straight. I will break in pieces the gates of brass and cut in sunder the bars of iron.
Continue.
I will give thee the treasures of darkness and hidden riches of secret places, that thou mayest know that I, the Lord, which call thee by thy name, am the power of Israel.
Now, this is the Most High announcing how Israel was going to get money, huh? The Most High in Ezra chapter, well, we'll read that when we get there. Go ahead.
Verse 4. For Jacob my servant's sake, and Israel mine elect, I have even called thee by thy name. I have surnamed thee, though thou hast not known me.
Hold on, this is what I want you to do. This is all these damn neighbors and shit. Jump down, to verse 11 to read verses, go right to the point. Verses 11 through 13. This is just him finalizing the fact that he have called Cyrus to do these things. Go ahead.
Isaiah 45 and verse 11. Thus saith the Lord, the Holy One of Israel, and his Maker. Ask me of things to come concerning my sons, and concerning the work of my hands, command ye me.
Yeah, the Most High said, you want to know anything about the works of my hands and my sons? You ask me. That means you got to refer to the Bible. Go ahead.
12. I have made the earth and created man upon it. I, even my hands, have stretched out the heavens, and all their hosts have I commanded. I have raised him up in righteousness.
I have raised him up. He's talking about Cyrus. He's going back to verse 1. I have raised him up in righteousness. Go ahead.
I have raised him up in righteousness, and I will direct all his ways. He shall build my city, and he shall let go my captives, not for price nor reward, saith the Lord of hosts.
That means he wasn't going to be doing it to get paid. Now let's go read once again of what Cyrus did. Now we go to Ezra. Now this is still all the first half, Elisha, of Daniel chapter 9 and verse 25. This is when that 70 weeks began. From the going, we're reading in detail now, the going forth of the commandment to rebuild Jerusalem. Ezra chapter 1 and verse 1, I'm going to get this up. Matter of fact, you're going to read the whole chapter.
Ezra chapter 1 and verse 1. Now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be fulfilled, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom, and put it also in writing, saying, Thus saith Cyrus, king of Persia, the Lord power of heaven have given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he have charged me to build him an house at Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Who is there among you of all his people? His power be with him, and let him go up to Jerusalem, which is in Judah, and build the house of the Lord power of Israel. He is the Most High, which is in Jerusalem.
Go ahead.
And whosoever remaineth in any place where he sojourneth, let the men of his place help him with silver, and with gold, and with goods, and with beasts, beside the freewill offering for the house of the Most High that is in Jerusalem. Then rose up the chief of the fathers of Judah and Benjamin, and the priests and the Levites, with all them whose spirit the Most High had raised, to go up to build the house of the Lord which is in Jerusalem. And all they that were about them strengthened their hand with vessels of silver, with gold, with goods, and with beasts, and with precious things, beside all that was willingly offered.
I need you to read a little louder out. Go ahead.
Verse 7. Also Cyrus the king brought forth the vessels of the house of the Lord, which Nebuchadnezzar had brought forth out of Jerusalem, and had put them in the house of his gods. Even those did Cyrus king of Persia bring forth by the hand of Mithredath the treasurer, and number them unto Sheshbazzar the prince of Judah. And this is the number of them: 30 charges of gold, 1,000 charges of silver, 29 knives, 30 basins of gold, silver basins of a second sort, 410, and other vessels 1,000. All the vessels of gold and of silver were 5,400. All these did Sheshbazzar bring up with them of the captivity that were brought up from Babylon unto Jerusalem.
All right. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so that's where it begins. All right, Elisha.
Yeah.
Now let's go back to Daniel chapter 9 and read verse 25 again. Let's get a little bit more.
Daniel chapter 9 and verse 25. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the Prince, shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street
Now,
shall be
now, so that means, hold on. So the period is talking about between what year was this? This was 538 BC. It was the first year of Cyrus the king. So Cyrus conquered and threw Babylon down in 539, 538, he put the commandment out to go back. All the way up until the coming of Christ represent 69 weeks. That's what they tell you. And in that period, the temple would be built. That's what he's letting you know. It said, the street shall be built again, the wall, even in troublous times. Now, this is what I want you to do. We're going to, a quick synopsis. Let's go to the end of it all. Go to Ezra chapter 6. What we're going to do, we're not going to read right now chronologically because we're breaking the verse down. So whatever these verses say, we're going to go there. But then you guys are going to have to do some reading on your own, and then we're going to do some reading in class as well, okay? So at what point was the temple and the street and everything built? That's chapter 6 of Ezra and verse 15. Maybe we can read a little bit above. Let's see. Chapter 6. Yeah, I want you to read verse 14. This is Kolak, verses 14 and 15 on the Yetazah, all right?
Okay. Ezra chapter 6 and verse 14. And the elders of the Jews builded, and they prospered through the prophesying of Haggai, the prophet, and Zechariah, the son of Iddo.
In other words, the books of Haggai and Zechariah, these were prophets that were contemporaries of Ezra and Nehemiah and Zerubbabel. Go ahead.
The son of Iddo. And they builded and finished it according to the commandment of the power of Israel, and according to the commandment of Cyrus and Darius and Artaxerxes, king of Persia.
Now, this is what I don't know if it's possible, Yetazah, for you to get how do I call that? I guess I want to say family tree of the Achaemenid dynasty, right? Achaemenid, Achaemenid dynasty. This begins with Cyrus the Great, because there's one king that isn't mentioned, and that's because when let's do this. Is it possible for you to do that?
Sorry, can you spell that again, please?
Can you want me to spell it again?
Yes, please.
ACH.
Yeah.
MENID. Yes, Elisha. Well, you're broken. We can't hear you from that section.
It is ACHAEMENID, Empire.
Yeah.
Okay, and let's check it out. But we're gonna check it out from the time of Cyrus on forward. We don't need to know about Cyrus's daddy and everybody, because the Most High brought Cyrus up on the scene with respect to Israel. And you're going to see that a couple of kings, or one king in particular, is missing. So here in verse, while I was looking to put that up, I'm going to read verse 14 again. And the elders of the Jews builded, and they prospered through the prophesying of Haggai the prophet and Zechariah the son of Edo, and they built it and finished it according to the commandment of the Most High of Israel, and according to the commandment of Cyrus and Darius and Artaxerxes of king of Persia. All right. Now what happens is there's a king mixing, and that king would be Ahasuerus, who is Xerxes. But Ahasuerus' name isn't mentioned here because during his kingdom, he's off waging war against the Greeks, so that the movie 300 could be made thousands of years later. Shit, who knows, right? The point is, that's what he's talking about. That's what happened. And that's in Daniel 11. It tells you that he was off on military excursion, but it happened during his time. But he wasn't there to preside over it like these other kings. You got that, Amiyatazam?
Yeah.
So in order to understand verse 15, we have to put this timeline up, or this thing up first. I hope it has their names and then the years in which they ruled as well. It's going to be Darius, that final one that's mentioned. He ruled from 424 to 404 BC. And so the scriptures tell you that in his life, in his reign, it was finished in the 6th year of the reign of Darius, not Darius the Mede. This is the Persian side now. Make it bigger, brother. Damn. Okay, so you see the very first one is Achaemenes. But we're taking it from Cyrus, right? Let me see, Cyrus the Great. So you see Cambyses. Cambyses is the cat. No, hold on. Got all of that? Okay. Cyrus the Great. So you got the 2 blocks at the top. Then to the left, you got to the third block. So everything from him. Now listen up. You see under him, go farther down. Damn, this is kind of messed up, Doc. Right there, right there, right there. Hold on, that's good. So you see Xerxes right there. So it started at Cyrus the Great, up to the left. You go past Xerxes, let me see. Darius, you see Darius the Great? That was his successor. Meaning Darius is to the right. Cyrus right there. Darius, you go right under Cyrus and you see Artaxerxes, but to the right you see Darius. He's the one that ruled. Then after him was Xerxes. Xerxes isn't mentioned, but Artaxerxes is, you go down and you go to the right, and that's Cyrus right there. You see that 432 to 404. I have other sources that say 424 to 404. All right. It's during that Darius that says Emperor of Persia, 432 to 404. That's when the work was finished. All right. I want you to keep this up, Amiyatazah, while you're reading, okay?
Okay.
So go back now and read verse 14 and then 15.
Okay. Ezra chapter 6 and verse 14. And the elders of the Jews builded, and they prospered through the prophesying of Haggai the prophet and Zechariah the son of Iddo. And they builded and finished it according to the commandment of the power of Israel, and according to the commandment of Cyrus and Darius and Artaxerxes, king of Persia.
Now,
and this,
so you see that. Go ahead, Amiyatazah.
verse 15. And this house was finished on the 3rd day of the month of Adar, which was in the 6th year of the reign of Darius the king.
So now, that means you count, excuse me, y'all. You count from 432, you see Darius II. From 432, you count 6 years down. How many years is that, Amiyatazah? 32, 31, 30, 29, 28, 27, 26. So you're talking about different sources, right? This one here it would calculate to 4, what did I just say? 426, how many years
I believe so.
32 minus 6 is what?
32 minus 6 would be 26.
So this would be 426 BC when it was finished. Now, if you pull up another timeline, you'll find they'll have Darius from 424. When you see those other two names to the right, to the left of him, Xerxes II and Sargonius, I think them was like two of Artaxerxes' sons that tried to have a plot and was killed. That's a whole bunch of different history. The point is, depending on what source, what timeline or what lineage you refer to, this took place between 418 and 426 BC when the temple was made, or when Israel was done and the temple, or when Jerusalem rebuilt and the temple done. All right, so that's what that's talking about. Now, Yetazah, I still want you to leave that up. Go back to Daniel, because something took place. Go back to Daniel chapter 9, and I want you to read verse 25 again.
Daniel chapter 9, verse 25. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the prince shall be 7 weeks, and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublous times.
So when it says even in troublous times, you have to read. You guys are going to read chapters 2 all the way to chapter 6 to this point. You're going to read Ezra, in other words. Ezra chapter 2, all the way to Ezra chapter 6, the end of chapter 6. And the trouble, now we're going to highlight a little bit of it now to show you what the troublous times was. So what I want you to do is go to, for now, let me see, I'm sorry, what did I just do? Hold up. I'm losing my spot, y'all, excuse me. Yes. Okay, so like I said, on your own, you all are going to read Ezra, the book of Ezra, chapters 2 through 6. But in order briefly to understand the troubling times, we're going to go right now to Ezra chapter 4. To Ezra chapter 4, and we're going to read all the way down to verse 10. Okay, Yetazah? We may read a little bit more. We're almost out of time. Go ahead.
Ezra chapter 4, verse 1. Now when the adversaries of Judah and Benjamin heard that the children of this captivity builded a temple unto the Lord power of Israel, then they came to Zerubbabel and to the chief of the fathers, and said unto them, Let us build with you, for we seek your power, as ye do. And we do sacrifice unto him since the days of Esarhaddon, king of Assar, which brought us up hither.
Now that goes back to 2 Kings chapter 17. It's giving you the name of this king from the perspective of from the Persian perspective. But in 2 Kings chapter 17, it's referring to Shalmaneser. Okay, he's also known as Esarhaddon. So these are the strangers and the foreigners that was brought up by the king of Assyria. But when Babylon came and took Israel, they went beyond Samaria. They went down into Jerusalem. So he's saying, we've been worshiping your God, but they weren't. They were worshiping gods that, well, that's history alone. Basically, they weren't worshiping. This is what they're making reference to who Christ talked to that woman in John chapter 4, where he says, ye worship, but ye know not what, is because basically they were brought up wrong. They weren't taught about Israel. They were taught by the priest that, what's his name? That Jeroboam had drove the Levites out, and it said he made priests of the basest of men and they became the priests. Those were the ones that the king of Assyria sent back and taught these people wrong. Anyway, go ahead on the verse 3.
Ezra chapter 4 and verse 3. But Zerubbabel and Jeshua and the rest of the chief of the fathers of Israel said unto them, You have nothing to do with us to build an house unto our power, but we ourselves together will build unto the Lord power of Israel, as King Cyrus, the king of Persia, have commanded us. Then the people of the land weakened the hands of the people of Judah and troubled them in building.
So now remember, what the last line in Daniel chapter 9 and verse 25, it said, the street shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublous times. These were the problems. We were being hindered from approximately 108 to 120 years by all of these nations. From 538 to 526 to 5, from 538, excuse me, to 4, right, to 426 to 418, we couldn't get it done because of all these nations trying to keep us from getting it done. And so every king after Cyrus, they kept on sending letters to try to halt this process. Amayatazah. This is what I was referring to you about our endeavor out here.
Yeah.
It be the Most High's will. We read the prophecies in Isaiah 44. We read the prophecies in Isaiah 45, but the Most High was going to use Cyrus, right? We read Cyrus's own proclamations, but the nation still, the Most High put them there, you know why? To see who will fight to get the will of the Most High done. Who will endure the hardness? Who will endure the setbacks? Who will do it until the job is finished? That's what the Most High was trying to find out. Go ahead, Amayatazah. Verse 4 once more.
Verse 4. Then the people of the land weakened the hands of the people of Judah and troubled them in building, and hired counselors against them to frustrate their purpose all the days of Cyrus, king of Persia.
That means, now look back, well, hold up, refer back to your what you call it, to you guys, to the timeline. That means the interruptions all during the time of Cyrus the Great, upper left hand corner in the second slot to the left. Go ahead, Amayatazah.
Top of verse 5. And hired counselors against them to frustrate their purpose all the days of Cyrus, king of Persia, even unto the reign of Darius, king of Persia.
That means Darius is talking about even to the one that followed. He's in the second column to the right of Darius. It says Darius the Great. Go ahead, Amayatazah.
Verse 6. And in the reign of Ahasuerus, in the beginning of his reign, wrote they unto him an accusation against the inhabitants of Judah and Jerusalem.
Now, Ahasuerus is Xerxes. Xerxes the Great. So you got from Cyrus the Great to Darius the Great to Xerxes the Great. They still won't stop. Go ahead, Amayatazah.
Verse 7. And in the days of Artaxerxes, wrote Bishlam, Mithredath, Tabeel, and the rest of the...
Read verse 6 again.
Verse 6. And in the reign of Ahasuerus, in the beginning of his reign, wrote they unto him an accusation against the inhabitants of Judah and Jerusalem.
Go ahead.
Verse 7. And in the days of Artaxerxes, wrote Bishlam, Mithredath, Tabeel, and the rest of their companions, unto Artaxerxes, king of Persia, and the writing of the letter was written in the Syrian tongue and interpreted in the Syrian tongue. Rehum, the chancellor, and Shimshai, the scribe, wrote a letter against Jerusalem to Artaxerxes, the king, in this sort.
I want you to read all the way down to verse 11, and then we're done.
Verse 9. Then wrote Rehum, the chancellor, and Shimshai, the scribe, and the rest of their companions, the Dinites, the Arphasachites,
right,
the Tarpelites, the Arphasites, the Archavites, the Babylonians, the Susanchites, the Dehavites, and the Elamites.
That means these were all people, these were all, how do we say this? Descendants from the people that were put in by the king of Assyria. The king of Assyria took people from Babylon. He took people from Persia. He took people from, when it says right here, the Elamites, when it says right there, the Archavites, the Susan is in the province of Elam. He took people from everywhere and put them there. And now that the Persians have been in charge, the Persians have their people. Well, actually, we're going to actually have to read down at least to verse 15. Go ahead, or verse 16, and we're done. Go ahead.
Verse 10. And the rest of the nations whom the great and noble Asnapar brought over and set in the cities of Samaria, and the rest that are on this side the river, and at such a time.
When he said this side of the river, he's talking about west of the Euphrates. Go ahead.
Verse 11. This is the copy of the letter that they sent unto him, even unto Artaxerxes the king. Thy servants, the men on this side of the river, and at such a time, be it known unto the king that the Jews which came up from thee to us are come unto Jerusalem, building the rebellious and the bad city.
This is our reputation. We were known as the rebels of a bad city. Go ahead.
And have set up the walls thereof, and joined the foundations. Be it known now unto the king that if this city be builded and the walls set up again, then will they not pay toll, tribute, and custom, and so thou shalt damage the revenue of the kings.
That means if you let these people get in their home and build, that all your cash flow from this region is going to stop. That's what he's telling them. Go ahead.
Verse 14. Now, because we have maintenance from the king's palace.
When it says maintenance from the king's palace, these were the officials that were set up by the Persians to run that area west of the Euphrates. So they were the ones who were responsible for reporting to the king because they what? Because they live off of his purse. Go ahead.
Verse 14. Now, because we have maintenance from the king's palace, and it was not meet for us to see the king's dishonor, therefore have we sent and certified the king.
Go ahead. Go to verse 16.
That search may be made in the book of the records of thy fathers. So shalt thou find in the book of the records, and know that this city is a rebellious city, and hurtful unto kings and provinces.
Right? Shit. Go ahead.
And that they have moved sedition within the same of old time, for which cause was this city destroyed. We certify the king that if this city be builded up again, and the walls thereof set up, by this means thou shalt have no portion on this side the river.
That means once this, you ain't gonna get nothing from anything west of the Euphrates. You kiss goodbye. Now, like I said, you all have to find time. You have to make time to do your reading. So you guys are going to read from chapter 2 through this again, all the way to chapter 6, the end of chapter 6. But what I did for you was show you what Daniel, let's finalize with Daniel one more time. Daniel chapter 9 and verse 25, all right?
Daniel chapter 9 and verse 25. Now therefore, and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks, and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublous times.
So that means from the time of the going forth of the commandment that you read in Ezra chapter 1, that you read in 2 Chronicles chapter 36, verse 22 and 23, up until the coming of Christ is 69 weeks. So we still ain't gotten through the other events yet. The other events are mentioned in verse 26. And that's going to be a whole lot of reading in the Josephus that we will read together. Yes, Elisha.
So, are you saying that the 69 weeks are 480 years from time?
No, say that again.
It wasn't the 483 years?
It's not. Listen, you just throw that out your mind. The 70 weeks is not chronological earth time. it has to deal with, he's given us the window. Let's talk about it. The opening and the closing, right? The opening, I should say the beginning and the ending. The beginning of the 70-week period is Ezra chapter 1. That's when the commandment went forth. But the closing of the 79, I'll tell you what, we ain't gonna break it down now, but let's continue. Let's at least read verse 26 so you can see. Okay, so it can kind of make sense. Because this, listen, for decades, Elijah, this would have me tripped up. I kept trying to equivalate the 70 weeks with being BC and AD, but it's not that. The whole 70 is just talking about a series of events that will complete the will of the Most High. The term 7, whether it's 70, whether it's 7, whether it's 700, it's always completion. So this, he's letting us know. Verse 25 already told us what's taking place. We have an event that marks the beginning of the 70-week period, and we have an event that closes the 70-week period, and then all the events between that. Now let's read, just for the sake of understanding, right? At least familiarization, what we're going to be dealing with next week. I'm going to get to read verse 26.
Daniel chapter 10 and verse 26. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off.
Stop right
But
there.
not-
62. That means the 62 weeks side, but 62 weeks is what? Come on, 62 weeks is like a little over a year, right?
Right.
50, how many weeks is in a year? 52 weeks, what, ain't that something like that? Right? 5-2, right?
Yeah.
So it's all, forget that. Deal with it now. What event is he taking you to? He's saying that from the going forth of the commandment until the death of the Messiah. Verse 26 from the top again. I'm gonna have to just read it up into that part, that first portion.
Verse 26. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off.
So that's talking about the death of Christ in 33 AD. That's the Messiah. There's only one Messiah, and then he was only cut off once. Right? So there's a whole lot that happened in between Ezra chapter 1, where the decree to build Jerusalem went forth, and the death of Christ. Now he's going to give us a little bit more of what happened in between that, or actually afterward. What happened in between that? We just read it. The temple, Jerusalem, was rebuilt. We got allowed to go home. We had to fight through the reign of 5 kings, from Cyrus the Great to Darius to Xerxes to Artaxerxes to Darius. It took 5 Persian kings and that presided over the cities of Jerusalem being built. But then something else would happen. Amayetazar, read verse 26 from the top again.
Verse 26. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself.
Stop. Who did Christ die for? Who was he cut off for? Now, he wasn't cut off for himself. He was cut off for us. Go ahead.
And the people of the prince that shall come
Now, this is why we got to do a lot of reading. When it says, and the people of the prince that shall come, that phrase is associated with the succession of the empires that happened starting from the time of Babylon. When you read Daniel chapter 10, the prince of the power of the Greeks was coming up against the prince of the power of the Persians. But now the Persians are in. But during the time of the Messiah, listen to what it says. Shall the Messiah be cut off, but not for himself? And the people of the prince that shall come, that's talking about the Romans. What power was here during the time of Christ? The Romans. Go ahead, Ak.
And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary.
So who
And
would
the-
turn around and destroy the city and sanctuary again? The Romans. Now remember, he's talking about after the Messiah. The Messiah was cut off. The Messiah was cut off in 33 AD at the age of 33. His year, his birth represents, that's why AD means Anno Domini, year of our Lord. Like the Romans, Dominus, right? Shit like, that's how they say sir, or yes, sir. So the year of our Lord is his birth. 33 years after his birth, Christ was cut off, and 37 years after his death and resurrection and ascension, Jerusalem was destroyed. 70 AD. 33 plus 37 makes 70. And it was a process that lasted from 70 to about 74. Just that was the 70 AD represents the destruction of our center, Jerusalem. But then they went to Masada. Masada didn't take place until 73 AD. It was a 7-year siege. Then it continued. The 7-year siege started in 63 during the days of Nero. Go ahead, Nero, the emperor. I'm yet to read it from that point again. And the people of the power, or the people of the prince.
And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood. And unto the end of the war, desolations are determined.
So he's giving us a brief synopsis. But so what is verse 26 talking about? 26 is talking about the death of the Messiah, but it's talking about the destruction of Jerusalem by the prince, meaning the power that what? That was ruling during the time of the Messiah. That's the Romans. And when it says the flood, it's talking about complete destruction. Now, why am I running through this? So that you can see it's not talking about the years, Elisha. It's talking about a bunch of events that we have at our disposal. But now in verse 26, we got to start reading what? We got to read the Gospels and we got to read the book of Josephus. Read verse 27.
Verse 27. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week.
So this is why it says 69. It represents 1 week. Let me say this. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. This is talking about a pact, a covenant that was made between Israel and the Romans during the time of Judas Maccabees for the side of Israel and Julius Caesar for the side of the Romans. That's in the Josephus. We got to read that. Then that pact was confirmed afterward. Okay? That is talking about the dynamic of agreements being made between the Romans and the Jews so that we could what? We would be their allies and we would be allowed to keep our culture. But we got to read it. That's what I said, it ain't gonna make no sense. But for now, you guys' homework, that's what I said. Y'all's homework is to read what? Ezra chapter 2 through 6, so that you can fully understand what took place with verse 25. Read verse 27 from the top again,
Verse 27. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week.
Go ahead.
And in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease.
Stop. So in that, when it says in the midst of the week, you know what it ain't talking about? Like I said, it's what? Why does it say week? Because a week is 7 days. It's still talking about completion, a series of events that must happen according to the will of the Most High by prophecy. So in the midst of what? Of this contract between the Jews and the Romans, what took place? Nero set up, first of all, he raised the taxes, 63 AD. Raised the taxes on. Raised the taxes and then set up an abomination in the temple. And that's what caused the revolt of 63 AD. Vespasian and a few other generals Vespasian got called out of retirement. Nero had put his ass in retirement for mocking him. And then for Titus, his son, brought his legions. They all converged. It was like 5 or 6 legions, 5 or 6 generals with their legions converged on Jerusalem. And this is what Christ spoke of in Luke 21, when he said, when you shall see the Jerusalem compassed with armies. That process began in 63 AD. But this is what he's talking about. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation. That means he broke the covenant, right? And to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate. That means what? All the violence, all the revolt that took place from that abomination that was done within our temple. But we can't just, I'm doing it now, but you're not going to understand. I was going to say, I can't just read and tell you. You're going to have to see it in the scriptures, between the scriptures, the Apocrypha, and the book of Josephus. Because the first thing we're going to do in verse 27, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. We can't read about confirming the covenant until we read about the covenant being established. Then we're going to read in another section of Josephus where the covenant was confirmed. Then we're going to continue to read in the Josephus on how the covenant got broken. So I would say that these last verses 24 to 27, it's a whole lot of reading. But it don't begin until y'all understand what verse 25 is saying. And that one is said from the time of what? Know this forth and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem until the Messiah, the Prince, shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. That means from the time of Ezra, or from the time of Cyrus all the way to the time of the coming of Christ. That just represents 69 weeks in the spirit. But it is marked by a series of events that he's mentioning here. And so most of it is going to be you guys reading about the troublous times. That's what chapters 2 through 6 of Esdras is going to give you the details on, the troublous time. Then we'll get to verse 26 when you guys have read that. And we'll do all of as much of our supplemental reading, right, with y'all. Okay?
No.
All right, brothers.
Slow.
Y'all keep on fighting, man.
Slow.
Hey, tell the war to give me an update on the, I'll give him a call.
All right.
All right. Shalom, Amiyatazah.
All right, shalom.
I'll see you tomorrow, Rock.
All right,
All right,
shalom.
shalom, brothers.
Slow.
Shalom.